At 9 o'clock last night, Jesmond was once again the scene of a crime against a University of Newcastle student. Police say a woman was robbed at 9 o'clock as she tried to get onto a bus.
We understand that a male aged in his 20s has approached her from behind and taken a handbag or her wallet from her hand.
So far, 8 people have been arrested over a string of thefts committed against international students in and around the university's campus. Investigations have led police to believe that the crimes may not be racially motivated.
We understand that the reason why they actually target this particular client group is because they're affluent and they're usually carrying electronic devices like iPods and expensive phones, which they then use to convert into money.
The university today announced it was creating an international student support group.
Some of the things that we'll be doing is providing greater advice and assistance to university students. We'll be providing greater interventions in the schools in Newcastle.
And is hoping to receive financial support from the state and federal governments to operate it. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A taxi driver for 12 years, Corey Edward Still, is alleged to have committed the crimes against the 32-year-old after agreeing to drive her from Katara to Merewether on March 22 last year. During the third day of his trial, Still told the jury, "I just wanted to get the alleged victim to her destination, and she took advantage of me. She put her hands on the inside of my leg, she pulled down her pants, then I pulled down my pants." He then described in detail how, despite not intending to have sex with her, he allowed the woman to perform a sexual act on him. The alleged victim was intoxicated at the time and couldn't remember the taxi ride, but told police when she woke the next morning some of her clothes were missing and she had scratches and bruises on her thigh, neck and knee. Today, Crown Prosecutor Helen Wilson called her final witness, forensic biologist Clayton Walton. He told the court semen was detected on the alleged victim's bra, pants and top, and that the DNA which was recovered matched the profile of Mr. Still. The trial continues. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
I was forced to have it on this day.
It is perfectly valid to argue that all categories should be open to women. The only exceptions should be where the physical demands cannot be met, regardless of gender.
When he's never parachuted at night in the rain, when he's never carried a mortar base plate, for 50 kilometres in a route march when he's never spent nights and nights without sleep. For him to stand there and give his opinion and to push the government into something is simply outrageous.
It's been a harrowing 4 days for 12-year-old Jack Newton and his mother Melissa. Until yesterday, when they heard Scooby whimpering from inside this cave, they believed their beloved Pooch perished when he disappeared into it on Sunday. This morning, a specialist RSPCA rescue unit from Sydney, along with New South Wales Fire Brigade officers, were dispatched to try and free the captive canine. Using tiny cameras, rescuers were able to spot the dog trapped 6 metres in and 1 metre underground.
I'm really amazed. Thought I was never going to find him, but we have.
But reaching the Pooch and getting him to safety are proving difficult.
We've made a number of attempts to try and get Scooby out. There's been 2 different access points. We've tried to extract him. To this point, both have failed.
First, rescuers tried to collar the dog using a noose and lift him out of the cave. When that failed, they tried to climb in themselves, chiselling and jackhammering through the rock. All the while, Scooby cried for help.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking to hear when you're restless and you're trying to do your best but you can't help.
As the sun started to sink, rescuers were forced to rethink their tactics and eventually decided to dig 6 metres underneath the boulders and into the cave.
Scooby looks as though he's in an area where he's quite safe. He's bright and alert. He's fairly active. Just getting to that area and trying to extract him from that is very risky to the operators.
That process is expected to continue tonight and maybe into the morning.
We're going to get Scooby out. We're not actually going to stop until we actually get him out.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Like crying, I don't know. My teammates, I couldn't have done without them.
If you want to know how popular the Knights are since making the NRL finals, just try interviewing one. Jared Mullen was king of the kids at the primary school tournament that bears his name. It wasn't so long ago he was the young bloke of the Knights team. Now he's one of a handful of 2006 veterans that have finals experience, so he's having to oversee more than just these next generation players this week.
We've got a couple of young fellas coming through that don't know what it's all about, but we've been trying to tell them through the week it's all a new ball game now, and it's a lot different. Semi-final football, it steps it up a gear.
Mullen doesn't put much stock in the fact the Bulldogs are coming off a shock loss, and unfortunately for the Knights, the Dogs aren't too worried either.
On the back of Haslam's celebration the week before, we were flat. We had 2 days of training, and it was very hard to play against the Tigers, who had nothing to play for, and they played great.
The Sydney-siders are putting their faith in prior form and finals experience, but coach Kevin Moore says he's under no illusions about what the Knights are capable of.
We're fully aware of what they can do. They've got a really good record against all the good sides in the competition, and they've come into the finals on good form.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
After nearly 5 days trapped inside the cave, Scooby's strength is waning.
Today he's been more vocal, but it sounds a lot fainter. Like he does sound like he hasn't got much energy.
While the 8-year-old King Charles Spaniel is still mobile, he's desperately thirsty. RSPCA rescue officers returned to the scene early this morning, their priority to get Scooby a drink. The rescue team then tried to jackhammer through rocks to create a big enough hole to reach in and grab the dog. When that didn't work, specialist mine rescue operators, along with a drilling and rock splitting expert from the Snowy Mountains, were called in.
One of the other options that's been spoken about has been starting to remove rocks from the top and breaking away certain bits and pieces of the structure.
Late this afternoon, the team tried a new tactic and blew huge boulders off the top of the cave in an attempt to create another access point. The whole ordeal has put Scooby's owner, 12-year-old Jack, through a roller coaster of emotions.
Feeling a little bit happy and a little bit worried. I'm happy that he's about to get out, they're breaking through, but the thing that's worrying me is I don't want a rock falling on him.
And it could still be another day before Scooby is back home.
He's been in my life for a long time and he's a big part of it, and I just love him to bits.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's not only prime farmland within the Williams River catchment, but also contains important wildlife and estuarine habitats. According to the Environmental Assessment Report, 8 species of native fish migrate to the estuarine waters to spawn, but the dam would form a barrier against them.
This report is now showing the costs, the environmental costs, the damage to the river, the damage to wildlife.
8 threatened animal species have also been recorded, including koalas and squirrel gliders, but the report claims none of them will be significantly affected by the proposed dam, as there are already some limited habitats within the cleared farmland. Hunter Water's argument is that 1.5 million trees will be planted to create biodiversity corridors, while more water storage will be needed in the future.
We have small storages within the Lower Hunter. They can decline very rapidly in dry times, and we need Tilligra Dam for drought security.
The report is now on public exhibition and submissions can be lodged over the next 2 months. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Recent years have seen a colourful and successful fight to keep developers out of the former mining village known as Caffo. But the handful of people who live here are divided. Some believe the campaign to stop residential development is killing the place.
The town is dying and will die unless more people come to live here on a permanent basis, not just holiday.
Most of these cottages are worth more than $1 million and are rented to holidaymakers. Some say the once bustling mining community has lost its soul, along with its population and facilities.
2 churches, the police station, the post office, the general store. The bowling clubs had to merge. We just basically don't have the people living here that form a community.
Glenda Carter runs the bowling club bistro, and business is bad.
I probably can't do another 2 years, say, if development doesn't go through. So then the bistro will close, so the club will then close. So where do you go to eat when you're on holidays?
Developer Brian Rose has issued a statement saying the Land and Environment Court failed to consider the merits of Rose Group's housing proposal for the people of New South Wales, and clearly some in the town agree. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
In March last year, taxi driver Corey Still picked up a passenger who was upset and crying. In her final submission today, Crown Prosecutor Helen Wilson told the court she was significantly intoxicated, not in a position to give consent. Her wish was to go home. She added he took advantage of her extreme intoxication to use a woman for sexual gratification. She was entirely defenceless. Police found the woman's underpants, top and one of her shoes in Still's home. DNA tests proved his semen was inside her pants and her bra. The jury was told she has no memory, except that a biggish man was lying over the top of her saying, "Shh, it'll be all right." During his summing up, defence barrister Paul Rosser admitted his client told idiotic lies. People tell lies to improve a story, which is otherwise true, but they're too stupid to realise the simple truth is best. Mr Rosser reminded the jury of evidence given by a witness who said Corey had told him that he picked up a drunk Sheila, she made advances at him and performed a sexual act. He went on to tell the jury that the semen could have been transferred from her hands onto her clothes and that during an alleged toilet break on the way home, she could have fallen over and sustained the scratches, as well as losing a shoe and losing her pants. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's life training that the parents of these Year 6 students never had. The pupils are off to high school next year, and to help them prepare, their schools organised a forum to teach them about the issues they'll face and some leadership strategies to help them cope. Following on from a recent visit to Whitebridge High School, the students heard from a panel of Year 11 and 12 students, as well as a professional life coach.
There's no one looking after them anymore, so it's really about self-management, managing their time, managing themselves, getting organised, taking control of their lives.
I'm a bit nervous, but I think I'll do good because some of my friends are there.
I haven't been too worried about it because I've got a fair few friends there and they could help me out, but also when I went there on the Friday, I felt pretty confident because I liked the difference, I like the change.
Even a certain TV journalist tried to inspire them, and I think they'll all be fine. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Smiles for the camera at the Knights Open training session last night. And it's not often the side is cheered onto the field at training. Perhaps a bit superstitious after the big win over Penrith, the Knights will wear the popular traditional jersey against the Bulldogs this weekend and hopefully after that as well.
I think every time we've sort of played in this jersey, we've played really well. So hopefully that can keep going. And yeah, it'd be nice to have it as a permanent sort of strip. I think everyone sort of really likes, and I think the fans like it as well.
For veteran Steve Simpson, finals are nothing new. He was part of the 2001 Premiership winning side.
Semi-finals brings out the best in every team. So we're just got to go and lift another cog or two. And yeah, if we play well, I'm really confident we can win the game.
But for all the experience comes a lot of inexperience. The majority of the squad hasn't had a taste of finals footy, including mid-year signing Shannon McDonnell, who's looking to impress heading into contract negotiations.
I'll brush that aside and leave that for the suits to talk about.
Zeb Taylor and Isaac De Gois are still only a 50-50 chance of lining up against the Dogs. Both will be given until the last minute to prove their fitness. The side leaves for Sydney tomorrow afternoon. Kate Mitchell, NBN News. Cessnock and Wyong facing off ahead of the Newcastle Rugby League Grand Final. The Goannas are tipped to win thanks to a convincing 46-20 victory over the Roos in the major semi-final a fortnight ago. But the Central Coast boys reckon they've improved since then.
We completed one set, I think, in the second half against them last time. You can't win football games completing one set.
They showed that improvement with an unexpected 26-14 win over Curry to qualify for the decider, and that has Cessnock wary.
They've got the beauty of consistent footy where we've only played one game in a few weeks, so
they've probably got the ball in their court a little bit.
Doesn't really matter what's happened the rest of the year. It comes down to this day. So we've been dominant all year, but if we don't win this one, no one will care about that.
And while anything can happen on the day, what is for sure is that Wyong will have to lift, especially in defence, to topple Cessnock.
You don't see much flair and balls thrown out the back and that in grand finals. It's good, hard, tough footy, and that's what'll win it.
The match kicks off at 3 p.m. on Sunday at Number 1 Sports Ground, or for a live stream of the match, just head to the NBN website and follow the links.
We were just driving past the lake and I saw someone wakeboard and then just asked Dad if we could try it, and since then I loved it.
The scene was picture perfect at the Broadmeadow track this morning, and now the NJC is desperately hoping that come next Wednesday and Thursday, these grounds are full of punters, horses and jockeys. The Gold Cup Carnival is the region's biggest week of racing and features the Group 3 Cameron Handicap and Newcastle Gold Cup. All up, there's $1 million in prize money on offer over the 2 days, but talk of a possible jockey strike has the club feeling a little edgy.
The hotels in town are booked out, the motels are booked out. People come and make a 2 and 3 day trip out of it, and they go up to the Hunter Valley. So it's not just the racing club that suffers, it's the whole Hunter region.
The Cameron and Gold Cup are also lead-ups to bigger metropolitan features.
Horses are finely tuned, they're tuned to the minute, and you start upsetting that program, then it has great impact later on in their preparations.
Newcastle's AJA representative Andrew Gibbons was on track at Taree today. He wants to race in Newcastle next week, but says there has to be some give and take from the Australian Racing Board.
And the thing is, it's not about getting all our own way. We're happy to go 90% their way. It's only that little bit we want changed, and hopefully it doesn't come to a strike, as I said, but there isn't probably any more option. We've done all the talking, and there's no other option we can really do.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Even the police donned the red and blue today to give the Knights an escort onto the F3 freeway. Earlier, fans of all ages turned out in Mayfield to wish the team luck ahead of the sudden death final.
Yeah, we've got the best supporters in the league, so I'm sure they'll get behind us.
Zeb Taylor boarded the bus after being cleared of a shoulder injury, while Isaac de Gois will start after overcoming a knee injury. Both will provide a much-needed boost to a side that has the least finals experience.
Obviously some experience and some just some control and composure from our senior players will help.
I've said to a few of the boys through the week, I said it's just, they've been playing since they've been 6 and 7 year old. I said nothing changes too much. I said the intensity is probably a little bit higher. And
experience is hardly an issue for Adam McDougall. He'll team up with Shannon McDonnell on the right wing. The pair has the unenviable job of trying to stop Josh Morris and Bryson Goodwin, with 39 tries between them this season. But Mad Dog says the aim is to starve the duo of the ball.
At the end of the day, it comes down to probably what goes on inside us rather than what, it's a team effort. Every single player in that Bulldogs side is capable of scoring tries.
And defence is the key, with the Knights looking to repeat last week's effort where they kept the Panthers scoreless.
You know, that's been the theme this week for us, is our defence. The Bulldogs have scored a lot of points and, you know, they've got a great side. So obviously if we can curtail their attacking ability, it'll go a long way to ensuring a win for us.
You can catch all the action on NBN from 8:30 tomorrow night.
Hospitality, of course, because of the hotel component, but also there's going to be a lot of conferencing and events positions, and also, of course, with the spa treatments and those sort of things as well. In March last year, taxi driver Corey Edward Still picked up an intoxicated 32-year-old passenger in Katara and took more than an hour to drive her home to Merewether. The next morning, the woman woke missing clothing and with scratches and bruising to her neck, thigh and breasts. While she couldn't remember how she got them, during the trial she told the district court she did remember a biggish man lying on top of her, telling her it would be all right. Police found her clothing along with a mobile phone inside Still's home and charged the cabbie with indecent assault, detained for advantage and stealing. Still pleaded not guilty to the charges, claiming the woman initiated and made sexual contact. DNA testing identified Still's semen inside the underwear. Today, the jury took just 4 hours to find him guilty of indecent assault and stealing, but not guilty of the more serious charge of detaining the woman for an advantage. Still showed no emotion as the jury delivered its verdict, nor did he react as he was led away to the cells. He'll remain in custody until at least next Friday, when sentencing submissions are due to begin. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Maureen and her 5 little friends, Max, Tiny, Tina, Missy and Polly, that's Polly in the trolley, hardly appear a threat to anyone. Yet Cessnock City Council says they're a menace.
We have unfortunately had a number of complaints over a period of time.
Last week, 2 council rangers threw the book at the likeable pensioner, fining her $220.
And they introduced themselves and said, no leads on the dogs, and I said no. And then she said, well, we're going to book you. And I felt so upset.
Maureen is a life member of the RSPCA and she's rescued all these little dogs from violent and neglectful homes. So she felt hurt by the fine.
I know I've broken the law, but the other rangers have never worried me over the years. I think that they had more of a heart.
The council says it couldn't ignore the blatant law breaking any longer.
But after 6 warnings, it gets to a point where some action needs to be taken to show that we're fair dinkum.
Tina and Dot from the general store are fair dinkum too. They started an appeal to help Maureen pay the fine and collected almost $1,500.
I mean, the dogs, you've seen them, they just walk slowly along, you know.
Yeah,
they wouldn't attack anybody.
Yeah, she's an icon. Icon for Cessnock.
The dogs are now all on leads, but don't mention those rangers in front of Tiny. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The 2 captains inspected the grand final venue this morning before getting their hands on the prize temporarily. Olympic captain Matt Austin says big game experience will help his side claim the trophy.
There's not a great deal of young guys in the team. The ones that are younger have played in the grand final already.
But David Hodgson believes Valentine Phoenix's semi-final win over the Magic proves they're the real deal.
Broadmeadow, our class, is probably the benchmark of the competition, so having got past them in the semi-finals, I'm really confident we can go on and do the job in the grand final.
Spicing up the rivalry, Olympics coach will be replaced next season by Valentine Phoenix mentor Mick Bolch. He's already told several Hamilton squad members they're not required, including Player of the Year John Majerowski. The captains say it won't be a factor.
Yeah, that kind of thing gets joked about after the game or, before the game, but yeah, that doesn't really enter it for us.
Olympic couldn't beat the minor premiers this season, but Austin says they have the game plan for victory.
Shutting their front two down and controlling their midfield. Yeah, if we can do that, I don't think they'll know what's hit them.
The Valentine Phoenix captain disagrees.
Personally, it might sound arrogant, but I think we're strong all over the park. We've got the best defence in the league.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Nestled within the city's business precinct, firefighters managed to save neighbouring commercial properties, but there wasn't much left of the brick and tile home. The fire broke out at 2:30 this morning, and hotspots were still proving a problem for firefighters at dawn. But of more concern, fears the fire could have been fatal, with the occupant initially unaccounted for.
There was also a report of an elderly lady living in the place, so amongst their firefighting they also commenced a search and rescue operation.
Emergency services sifted through the ash and debris, scouring every room of the house, but later found no sign of a body. Forensics spent most of the day at the scene, and just how the fire started remains the subject of a police investigation. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
It's important that we keep remembering not just the people that died, but the spirit that they fought with and what they were prepared to put on the line to defend their nation and defend the people.
Kaz Patafta showed how it's done this morning. But with Sean Rooney resting in the stands, Sasho Petrovski is likely to carry the load up front against the Raw. After scoring in the Champions League, the veteran striker is yet to hit the target in the A-League. The coach says the pressure is on, but Petrovski isn't fazed.
I can sense something coming, yeah. I think in year one of the A-League, I didn't start firing until round 6 or 7, and I ended up being top goal scorer on 9 goals.
Brisbane comes to Newcastle on the back of a spiteful draw with the Fury. The Raw's Sergio van Dijk will renew a rivalry that stretches back to the Dutch Second Division if Newcastle's Donny de Groot sees game time tomorrow.
So I hope he doesn't score, but if we're in front 5-0 and he scores 5-1, then I'm happy to give him one goal.
Meanwhile, the Jets youth team starts its campaign prior to the A-League clash. Coach Craig Dean says his side obviously wants to improve on last season's wooden spoon, but unearthing talent like Marco Jessic and Brodie Moy is the real goal.
If we can get another young player each year, maybe come through. If you get two, that's even better, but I think if you get one a year, that's not too bad a result.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The daring rescue of Scooby by Rutherford RSPCA officers has gained international attention. The deaf King Charles Spaniel was trapped in a cave at Cessnock for 5 days before being freed. The Rutherford Animal Shelter hopes the recent exposure will inspire people to join its new fundraising committee, and Scooby's owners are happy to help.
It was kind of like fate, Scooby did need help, but it's kind of maybe brought awareness just at the right time for the RSPCA here in Rutherford.
Prospective committee members today toured the shelter to get an idea of where and how the facility's funding gets spent. Scooby's owners were the first to put their hands up and join.
They've done a great job and they need some supporters and volunteers to help them.
I'll be back here next Saturday to help walk the dogs, I think.
The facility runs at a $1 million deficit each year and desperately needs more donations to feed and shelter the thousands of creatures that pass through its doors.
We have a lot of events, etc., that we go to every year, and we're running out of people to attend them and to help out. And we're also always after new ideas, so it's about getting people through the door to join a committee.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Cardiff started the grand final as slight favourites, having claimed the minor premiership, but it was Newcastle City who dominated the first quarter. Terry O'Kane kicked the opening goal. before Cardiff responded with their only goal of the quarter. Martin Dineen was seeing plenty of the ball up front, snapping this effort under plenty of pressure. O'Kane and Dineen then traded goals for the rest of the quarter as Cardiff continued to settle for behinds. Dineen then made it look easy as City's lead blew out to 20 at quarter time. But that's where the dominance ended. The second belonged to the minor premiers as a strong breeze played into Cardiff's hands, Michael Ryan kicking his first goal. By three-quarter time, nothing could separate the sides, level at 10 goals, 11 behinds all. With time running out in the last, another goal from Ryan got Cardiff close, but Newcastle's Courtney Knight put the result beyond doubt with this effort.
It's the second blaze to threaten homes in Port Stephens in just 2 weeks, and the official bushfire season hasn't even started. The fire is believed to have been caused by a hazard reduction burn on a private property that got out of control. The Rural Fire Service was called in just after 12:30 when flames began heading towards homes along Marsh Road.
Just put in containment lines, got the western side contained and had units in property protection mode down here earlier this afternoon.
The blaze came within metres of this house. Luckily, firefighters were able to fend off flames. So far, 10 hectares of land have burnt out. Fireys are bracing themselves for what could be a shocker of a season.
Early indications are showing it's going to be dry right through to Christmas, and yeah, it could be a bad season for us.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. Move over, NRL girls. There's a new brand of cheerleading in town, and it's absolutely amazing. The East Coastal Stars cheer squad has been performing American-style cheerleading since 2007, and their carefully choreographed moves look like something straight out of a teen movie.
There is a little bit of gymnastics in it. There's dancing, there's sports aerobics, there's even stunt work.
Under the guidance of former Universal Studios stuntwoman Cassandra Turner and her husband Derek, the squad has spent the weekend practicing for the state championships in Sydney. In November, the team will bring it on at the national titles before hopefully heading to New Zealand to compete in the international championships. And there's more to the increasingly popular sport than meets the eye.
You can actually become a professional American-style cheerleader and get scholarships to universities in America and really start a career through it.
Losing that sort of rotation on the interchange definitely did cost us.
Obviously it's been a pretty vicious baptism. I've enjoyed it, that's for sure. Probably disappointed with some of the calls we made with Zev and Isaac, of course. It had a marked effect on the game.
Rick Stone shouldn't be, being too hard on himself. It's semi-final time. You want your best players out there.
They sort of got out of the game pretty well there, the Bulldogs. You didn't get to build much pressure on their line, and I think that was the sort of reason why we lost tonight.
Heading into this match, Hamilton hadn't beaten Valentine this season, and Olympics' push to right past wrongs rattled Phoenix early. Valentine, though, was the first to show its premiership credentials through captain Dave Hodgson scoring against Hamilton, the club he'll call home next season. It was a rough and tumble ride for Olympic, but Murray Fletcher picked things up to keep them in the hunt. Valentine struck at Hamilton's heart, but it wouldn't trouble Ben Kelly, the Olympic goalie well and truly earning his keep, with scores locked at 1-1 at the break. Phoenix could have done with a little help. The pint-sized pitch invader delayed the second half, but worth the wait for Hamilton as Fletcher found his second. Valentine vowed not to give in, but Hamilton's keeper was every bit the saving grace as Olympic held out a fast-finishing Phoenix.
It was one of those games, grand final. Never pretty, but it was hard work. Very hot, very dry.
But what a cup to drink from tonight. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The flames sparked a frantic night, not just for firefighters but also for Central Hunter detectives who found themselves attempting to determine the whereabouts of a missing man. The 78-year-old was unaccounted for after his Kurri house was gutted by fire. The Lang Street home caught alight just after midnight and quickly burnt to the ground, the front fence one of few things left behind.
We were awoken by a large explosion, it sounded like. Come out the front of the house and next door neighbour's house was fully alight.
Onlookers did their best to keep the intense fire from spreading, but it soon jumped to a neighbouring home which also sustained significant damage. Concerns soon turned to the whereabouts of the elderly man.
Don't know at present, no, I can't say at present. We don't know anything further on that.
Thankfully, he was located at midday today, visiting family in Sydney. The cause of the fire is still being investigated. Meanwhile, the Bunnings store at Belmont was also the scene of a major fire overnight, although there were no obvious signs of the drama this morning. It took 40 firefighters around 4 hours to bring the flames under control after they destroyed aisles in the hose garden and electrical sections. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Having traded as the Gardens Sports Club since 2003, the venue closed suddenly on Saturday morning with a sign on the front door offering little explanation. The National Coursing Association, which owns the club, today told NBN News that due to the club's current and long-term viability, the board decided to cease trading. Staff members were notified over the weekend. The club chairman released a statement saying it is with a heavy heart that the directors formed this decision. I am happy to say that we will meet all our obligations to staff and creditors. The Greyhound Racing Complex will remain open and the restaurant will operate on race days. John Chin from Clubs New South Wales says such closures have become common, with the NJC Sports Club another venue that struggled to compete with pubs and larger clubs.
Unfortunately, the smoking ban had a lot to do with it. The economy, of course, that didn't help, unfortunately. And I think that small clubs, I think their days are numbered.
Last year, 19 clubs in the state were closed or amalgamated. 20 more have called last drinks this year. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Peter Garnham has been a smoker for 30 years, so it's perhaps a bit ironic that he was the Maitland councillor who moved the motion to ban smoking in designated outdoor areas.
Whilst I'm a smoker myself, I don't want any of my kids to smoke.
The first stage of the move comes into effect next January and bans smoking within 10 metres of all council's children's playgrounds and within the boundaries of sports grounds and swimming centres.
There's also the ability in the motion for defined smoking areas. That's the car parks or access roads. So it hasn't eroded the rights of the smoker. but it's protecting our kids.
Stage 2 of the policy, coming into effect in July 2011, prohibits smoking within 10 metres of council-owned or managed buildings, as well as in alfresco dining areas, such as here in Morpeth. 40% of the state's councils have now adopted some form of outdoor smoking ban, and the Cancer Council wants the momentum to continue.
It's difficult to enforce at first, but we think that they'll become a social and self-policing sort of policy.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
The words spoken on this stage would resonate with POWs past and present. Rick Morant plays tough-talking digger Blue, a character based on Stan Arneal, someone who not only survived the prisoner of war camps of World War II, but went on to found the credit union movement.
It's an extraordinary story and one which was neglected for a long, long time.
The production is called A Bright and Crimson Flower. It's based on personal accounts of life in Southeast Asia POW camps and the music diggers called upon to mask the daily horrors. For every town and city it tours, the production uses local choirs. Proceeds from tomorrow night's show at the Civic Theatre will go to charities including Legacy and the Salvation Army. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Obviously, I don't favour one region over the other when I look at those bigger portfolios, but I think that it is important that the Hunter has someone in Cabinet
Here's something you don't want to find in your backyard. These two big black snakes were spotted on a property in the Hunter Valley. The males were engaged in a ritual fight, something, believe it or not, that's relatively harmless for both.
It's a strength thing, so the strongest out of the two males ends up with the girl.
The warmer weather is bringing the slithering creatures out in big numbers for an early breeding season. On the whole, the snakes don't want to have anything to do with humans as they're too busy going about their business.
So you see a lot of male combating, younger males and females that are not breeding age will just go about their own business looking for food and trying to stay out of everyone's way.
Judy Martin has caught more than 17 mainly black and brown snakes in the Newcastle region since August. This red belly black snake was found in a housing estate at Shortland, just lazing around in the sun.
Stand at a distance, enjoy it, take photos, yes, but as long as you don't invade the snake's space, you'll be fine. He'll go do his thing and you can just get beautiful nature photos.
Wildlife experts say if you do come across a snake, maintain eye contact and take 2 slow steps backwards. And if you get bitten, seek urgent medical attention. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
The game plan went absolutely perfectly. We decided on the game plan, we flew it, and it worked. So yeah, really happy.
It was a relatively subdued start to the Knights Mad Monday. Players met at Club HQ for their traditional post-season gathering, where the dress code certainly wasn't formal. The mood better than a sombre Saturday night, though, when their season went to the Dogs.
There's always next year, there's always next year. You don't get too many cracks at it. You only get to play semis once every year, and she's all over this year.
Although plenty of talk has centred on the failed gamble to play injured stars Isaac de Gois and Zeb Taylor, today the Knights had fresh problems. Matt Hilder faces a 2 to 3 week suspension for his dangerous throw. Steve Sampson 2 weeks for his. While Richard Fayoso was charged but escaped further sanction for a high tackle. There's better news for some teammates, with George Nadira agreeing to stay a Knight for another 12 months, while Chris Houston has been named in the Kangaroos train-on squad along with Kurt Gidley. However, immediate thoughts centre around what could have been at club level.
This year we at least got a taste. Next year is a new ball game, you know what I mean? We've got most of the same players on deck, so we're going to be in a good learning phase in the off-season, and who knows from there.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. They say winners are grinners, and the look on the Roos faces at full-time yesterday had only changed in colour today. Wyong's dress-up party is sure to last a while yet.
I couldn't fault any of the boys, you know, like that. It was just, we turned up on the day and done the job. It was great.
In contrast, Cessnock was left wondering just what happened. After a poor start, the favourites were down 10-0 at half-time, and any chance of a comeback evaporated in a heated few minutes after the break, starting with Sione Finifawaki's send-off. It was followed by Joby Patton's dismissal. When Willie Paleo got his orders too, Cessnock was down to 10 men. From there, it was all one-way traffic. Wyong scored at will to complete a huge upset, and it's making no apologies for that.
As soon as I come off the ground, all they wanted to do was talk about the 3 players that got sent off, but, you know, we had them 10-0 before anyone got sent off. We had that breeze in the second half. We were always going to win by that much.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's among Gloucester's proudest sporting traditions, and a well-supported one, both on the track and beside it. The Mountain Man Tri-Challenge boasts among the prettiest backdrops of the triathlon scene. The Barrington Top's especially breathtaking on a warm spring day. The paddle was every bit the river leg as triathletes walked their kayaks through the Barrington shallows and rapids before making their move. But for one of the front runners, his Gloucester campaign was almost sunk.
I broke my kayak that I was going to paddle, and then my ski cable ripped out. I lost part of my helmet and I hurt my back, and I got up this morning and I think, geez, nothing's going right.
But Boyd Conrick didn't take long to correct things, emerging from the run leg first to win the event in 2 hours, 40 minutes and 14 seconds.
I paddled and ran all right, but the mountain bike, I thought it would hurt, and it did.
3 minutes behind was Tingara Heights triathlete Nathan Stewart, while Mike Summer finished third. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.